whenever I am recommending a private product, and everyone has their kind of favorite go-to product in all the different insurance categories essentially. But once I have kind of narrowed my search down as far as exhausting, if we're going to go traditional, if we're going to look at short term, if we're going to look at America's Choice, whatever the case might be, let's say I've already narrowed it down to private, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go to Philly. That's just my preference. It doesn't have to be yours. You can most definitely do Manhattan Life as well. I do have quite a few clients with them. But this is going to be an example of me offering Philadelphia American Life. I just kind of quickly threw something together here, a 32-year-old female, and I went ahead and put 2 kids on him. And just to kind of give you an idea, and this might be a little old school, you guys might have a more tech savvy way of doing it. I quite literally have a notebook next to me the entire time. I already mapped out a few ways on how I'm going to be quoting this individual, as far as if I'm going to do an Optum route or if I'm going to do a Health Saver Plus route. And then I write all the prices, and I even write the price difference because those questions are going to come up, and it's better if I already have it there and spit out to answer their question. Okay. So in this instance, I have, of course, accident and critical already built in. And when I'm presenting, I start with the easy stuff first, and then I do the hard stuff last. And not necessarily hard stuff, but the more complex, the more informative things. So what I typically will do, I'll start my pitch and I will explain to them. I'm actually going to be writing 2 companies on you today because sometimes dividing and conquering with your coverage and not putting all of your eggs in one basket can get you a more well-rounded policy and for a much better price point. With that being said, there's never going to be one insurance that's going to check all of your boxes. And what that means is you're not going to like something about your policy, whether it's really good at catastrophic, but it's not that great on day-to-day coverage as far as like doctor's visits, diagnostic care, maybe everything hinges on your deductible. Or it might be really good for day-to-day care, like you get free preventative or you have low copays for prescriptions or whatever the case might be. But in order to get anything done outside of that wellness visit, you are going to be coming out of pocket to meet your deductible, and your deductible is really, really high, right? Like if you land yourself in the hospital, you're meeting a $7, $8, $9,000 deductible. That's just not realistic for a healthy individual. So I will start by explaining them the back end of their product. So I always say this is a better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it plan. This is through MedMutual. It's their specified disease. This is what I would call their back end policy. And it is quite literally what it is named. It does exactly what it is named. So you would not use this product in a car accident. You would not use this product if you fell from a high building or whatever the case might be. No injury related, just specific diseases. The reason why I picked this option is because, as you can see, yes, this deductible is $5,000, but once you hit that deductible, you're going to get 100% benefit coverage thereafter, up to $1 million maximum benefit. There are other options that they offer, like you can get a $500 deductible, but it's only going to cover 80% there forward. So you're still out of pocket 20%. We're not fully stopping the financial bleeding at that point. So that's why for an extra 20 or so dollars, I would recommend this route. A huge plus is it also uses the First Health Network, which we all know and are familiar with. It is a very popular network. It's vastly accepted, and it stems from the Aetna umbrella. Now I will go ahead and I click on this link and, oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong one. I'll go through and I just kind of let them browse this over and I say, hey, yes, it does have some wellness benefits. That's not what I'm hanging my hat on for you necessarily with this product. This product I'm putting into place, heaven forbid you have cancer, heart attack, your gallbladder needs to be removed suddenly, strokes, any of these big major things, because that's what people ultimately care about the most. I hear a lot of crazy what if scenarios. So I like to have this right here. It's very black and white and easy. So now let's transition over to what I would call your primary policy. This is what you're going to use every single time you go to the doctor or any kind of medical facility whatsoever. Once again, let's start with the easy stuff, in my opinion. And also this critical illness, in my opinion, directly relates to the MedMutual product as well. Your critical illness is a lump sum payout in the event any kind of big major illness were to come about. So once again, cancer, heart attack, stroke. They're going to cut you a check for the amount selected on the left-hand side. Now, you can have options ranging from 10 to 50,000 for a primary, and as far as children go, it's only a $10,000 benefit, but that should be sufficient enough. I typically will always start everybody out at 20,000 because then they have the option to go down or go up if they would like. I like to give my clients options. I don't like backing them in a corner and making it seem like, hey, this is what I'm offering you, this is what you can get type of thing. Um, so in this instance, I would tell them, hey, so let's play the what if game. Let's say you have a heart attack, you land yourself in the hospital, and that's when your Med Mutual product would come into play, the first plan that we just discussed. But it does have a $5,000 deductible. Ultimately, we're going to get Philadelphia American Life processed and rolling on on getting this critical illness check cut out to you. They're going to cut you a check for 20 grand. My whole goal is to alleviate your financial responsibility with Med Mutual. So I'm basically using one company to pay for the other. Okay, we're going to take 5 out of that 20 to pay off that product. Boom, we just unlocked it at 100%. The next portion that I always write in, I write the accident through here, your enhanced 24-hour accident. I know that you can add accident directly into like HSP and stuff like that. I prefer this route. And with this one, I typically always start them out at 1, and I just kind of let them know, hey, 1 unit is for the most part sufficient unless you are Murphy's Law, where if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. Then I highly recommend 2 units. And then I kind of just breeze them through this. So I'll say, this is in addition to your main policy. It is not going to replace what your main policy would pay in the event of any kind of injury claims. It's going to stack on top of it. So let's say you're walking out the door, the dog trips you up, you kind of roll your ankle. Well, it hurts for a couple days. You don't know. Is it just sprained? Did you fracture it? Did something bad happen? You go to that urgent care, you get that x-ray, and you get seen by that doctor. Your main product that I'm going to build for you is going to offer you urgent care visits and x-ray benefit coverage. However, there are certain things about every different type of insurance where there's holes, right? Or there's gaps. So just to be very transparent and to make you understand where the accident policy is very relevant in my eyes is private insurance doesn't cover durable medical equipment, for example. So let's say, they want to put a boot on your foot, that ankle, or you need to be on crutches, or you end up needing to get a cast of some kind. That service will not be covered underneath your main product. However, your accidental plan is going to give you an additional 2,000 in claims to go towards any patient responsibility or patient financial responsibility. So if the bill is 500, let's say insurance pays 450, you're out of pocket 50 bucks, your accident policy is automatically going to trigger and it's going to swoop in and pay that additional leftover responsibility up to 2,000. You have an accidental death benefit. You have additional ambulance services, hospital income. It's not the moon and the stars, but it's basically, hey, if you're laid up in a hospital, you're not working, you're not making money, they're going to supplement your income on a per day basis up to 30 days. And then, of course, you have dismemberment benefits. It just depends what you lose and how many you lose to know what they're going to pay out. Don't recommend scooping any of the eyeballs out for those higher payouts, but it's definitely available for you. And then I will just sort of click on this and show them, hey, that's the price difference between 1 unit and 2 unit, just in case you were curious. I know you could see the 2 unit on the brochure as I was going over it. So if you're interested for an extra $16 or so, that 2 units is available for you. Now, this next part, I always tell my clients, this is the meat and the potatoes of your policy. This is the main course to your dinner plate right here. And I'm going to give you 2 options. These are my 2 preferred favorites. Health Saver Plus Gold, which in my opinion, it's their OG policy. And then Optimum Health Saver is like Health Saver Plus's little sister. In my opinion, they both have pros and they both have cons. And we're going to kind of go through that a little bit. I already have these pre-selected though. See, so how I'm building them, I already have pre-selected. So that way they can go, okay, well, which one is the number over here on the left-hand side? That's your Health Saver Plus Gold. I already have that one selected. So if I were to deselect this and go in and select the Optimum for you, you're at about a $30.89 difference there. So what I'll do is I'll say, before, obviously, I'm asking them a lot of questions when I'm booking their appointment. What do they typically use their insurance for? If they're currently covered, if they're not currently covered, what are you interested in using your health insurance for? So like for example, last night I just wrote an app on a client who they couldn't care less about the 20 doctor's appointments that HSP offers. They cared more about how Optimum offered for urgent care visits versus HSP offered two. So they ended up going the Optimum route, and I will, whichever one they're more interested in, that's the one that I'm typically going to start with. So let's kind of start with HSP just because that always kind of seems to be a fan favorite. Okay. So I already have all my brochures up here open at the top of my screen. And I typically always start with like the day-to-day stuff, right? You don't want to bombard them with big numbers right at the beginning. You don't want to dive in with hospitalization and surgery and the more complex stuff. Let's start simple. Let's start easy. So I typically will go in and I'll say, hey, you each get 20 doctor's appointments throughout the calendar year. So 20 for you and then 20 for each of your kids, where we're going to follow along in this middle column right here, 2 units. They pay each appointment out at $120 per visit. You do not have a copay when you walk in. So you give them your insurance information, you get your exam, and you go home. And then I pull up an example, which if you don't have EOB examples, reach out to your upline or reach out to anybody and we can get some of those emailed over to you just to use for a reference guide. And I'll pull this up on my screen and I will say, this is an explanation of benefits. You get one of these in the mail every single time you run your insurance. It's just a breakdown to show what the insurance company was charged, what they paid, and what you might owe. So in this example, she went for just a regular office service, so an office exam. They billed insurance $155 for her exam. This next column is your discount column. Every insurance company offers this. You've heard of going in network and out of network. If you go in network, you're going to get a like a discount, a benefit for using a doctor that accepts your insurance. On average, I would say I see anywhere from 40 to 60%. Will you see some 20s and 30s? Yes, just like sometimes you'll see 70s and 80s, but that sweet spot is typically right here. So the bill was $155, discounted by 62, brought the bill down to $93. Total payable, she's on that same middle level policy like what I'm offering to you right now. So her policy was willing to pay $120. They only owed the provider $93. So as you can see, paid off at 100%. But since they were willing to pay $120 and only owed $93, there's a $27 difference. They were willing to pay $27 more than what the doctor was requesting. So that does get sent in a check form to the client. Now, is it always going to run out that way? 100% not. I can never promise you that you're going to create like a side hustle by signing up for this insurance by any means. Typically, only healthy people sign up for this policy. So you're probably not going to the doctor much. You're probably not going to see checks much. But when you do go, that is my ultimate goal for you. But on the flip side of that coin, they're not going to pay less just because the bill comes in less. They're also not going to pay more just because the bill comes in more. So realistically speaking, if the bill's 155, let's say the discount was $20, that brought the bill down to 135. Insurance is still only going to pay 120. So this next line would say 120. And then over here under the non-covered line, it would show $15, which $15 isn't bad. That's less than any typical copay nowadays anyways. Okay. And that's pretty much how the entire policy is going to operate for you. Same with like the specialist, for example. Now, this gets confusing for clients sometimes. So I do want to specify you're not limited to just 2 specialist appointments. It's just saying the first 2 specialists are going to be paid out at a higher rate, which would be the 150. If you need to go to a specialist more than twice a year, say you want to check in with your dermatologist 4 times a year, once every quarter, you're more than welcome to. The rest, those other 2 would just come out of the 20 doctor's appointments paid out at the 120. Now this next benefit stacks on top of one of these first 2, surgery in a physician's office. I always love to give the example of a dermatologist. If they're going to burn, freeze, cut something out of your skin, that's considered surgery in a specialist office. So here's an example of a client going to a dermatologist. There's her exam. There's the office surgery. She had a little cyst removed off of her chest. They billed $326.80, discounted by $187.80. There's her 350. So that's the 150 plus the 200, just like on the middle column that we're discussing today. They paid the 139 off to the doctor. She obviously made out like a bandit from this situation, 211. Most importantly, she leaned on me. She reached out to me. Hey, I really want to find a dermatologist in my area. What should I do? Perfect. Shoot me a text message. Tell me, hey, I really don't want to travel far, 10, 20 miles max. Perfect. I'm going to look up all the dermatologists in your area that accept your insurance and I'm going to email that list on over to you. Go ahead and pick from that list as you seem fit. And just remember when you're booking that appointment and when you show up for that appointment, you do not have copays. You do not have a calendar year deductible. So if the receptionist gives you a little bit of hassle and is trying to insist that she looked at your brochure and you have a $150 specialist copay, just pause, step aside, call me, and I will hop on speakerphone and just kind of educate them on how your policy breaks down for them. Now, MRIs, PET scans, CAT scans, x-rays, always, always, always lean on me. If you've ever messed up your back or messed up your shoulder and your doctor has needed you to get an MRI, they're going to give you that order. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, yeah, just head on across the street to the hospital. Most of the time, they just refer you to the hospital because that's who they're affiliated with, and they typically get a kickback for sending clients that way. But you're going to almost triple overpay by going to get an MRI done in a hospital. If you reach out to me, I can look up diagnostic imaging centers and radiology centers in your area that are in direct network with your insurance. So that way we can better utilize our insurance to its fullest potential by reducing your out of pocket. Also, one of the perks is you can go out of network with this insurance without being financially penalized. And what that just basically means is you can go wherever you want if you're going to go out of network. So we're going to a place that we know does not take your insurance, we're always going to self-pay. Self-pay is always cheaper than when you run your insurance anyways. So you're going to give yourself the opportunity to kind of compare options or to compare price points as far as that goes. Now, I do have an example of a self-pay. I don't know if it's going to pull up just yet. My computer's a little stuck right now, but that's okay. Okay, perfect. Let's do this. It might be in my other one. And I do screen shares with all of my clients, and it's definitely in this one. Why can't I find it? Nope. There we go. I was just typing in the wrong stuff. So this is an example, and this EOB is a little old, but this is an example of a client of mine up in North Florida. He's a mechanic. He is like a one-man show, basically. So he didn't really have time to go to this place or go to that place. Right across the street from him is a center called Titan MRI. He sent me the phone number and the name and said, hey, can you see if they accept my insurance? So I called them. I said, hey, do you guys accept First Health PPO? They said no. He also sent me a picture of his MRI order. And my next question to that Titan MRI place was, okay, what would your self-pay cost for a lower lumbar spine MRI with contrast be? They came back and said 199. I hung up. I called my client back. I said, no, they don't take your insurance. However, their cash pay price is 199. If you go there, get the super bill, I'll text you everything that needs to be on the super bill and just take a picture of it and text it to me. I will file your reimbursement for you. Your policy will reimburse you 700 for your MRI. He's on plan 3. In your case, being on plan 2, your policy would have reimbursed 500, but this is just a breakdown of what a reimbursement would look like. You can see his service date was on 1/6. He was reimbursed and the claim was processed by 1/18. So a pretty quick turnaround time. But you can see here, this shows what he was billed. There's no discount column because he didn't run his insurance, and there's no paid to provider line over here on the right-hand side. Once again, because he did not run his insurance. So they're just paying the client back directly. And then there is his check for $700 to go with that product. So you don't have to do self-pay. It's just one of the perks and the benefits and the flexibility features with this insurance is you can go where you want and utilize the insurance how it best fits you, essentially. Okay. Now emergency room and urgent care, you can see those benefits are almost identical. Their bills are not going to be identical. The best thing I can tell you is if you don't think you're getting admitted into the hospital, don't go to the emergency room. Utilize your urgent cares, utilize your walk-in clinics. Most of them have x-ray capabilities nowadays. And that is just a more beneficial route. Even if I write you a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, you're going to have a $7, $8, $9,000 deductible. You are fully responsible for that emergency room visit until you meet that deductible. And as a healthy individual, the likelihood of you coming out of pocket 7 grand in one calendar year, not very likely. So utilize your urgent care. You get 2 visits per year, 300 just for the exam, and whatever you're getting done while you're in there will stack on top. So if you need to go there, you have a really bad cough, they want to do an x-ray, see if you have bronchitis, pneumonia, whatever the case might be, that 160 plus that 300, as well as your 40 to 60% in network discount is going to stack on top of there as well. Okay. Now prescriptions, there's ups and downs to every insurance. The only downfall, in my opinion, of this policy is prescriptions or reimbursements only. So if you're familiar with GoodRx, you can download the app directly onto your phone. It doesn't have a fee or a charge. They will prompt you for GoodRx Gold or Plus. Just hit no thank you. And you can look up all the prescriptions, put the quantity, count the milligram, all of that. And it'll give you a list of all of your local pharmacies that accept GoodRx. And 9 times out of 10, the GoodRx discount is cheaper than what you would pay as a copay on a Blue Cross policy. And then if you just send me a copy of your RX receipt, not your credit card receipt, the RX receipt that comes with the prescriptions, I'll file your reimbursement, and it is per prescription. So if you're picking up a cough suppressant, an antibiotic, and a steroid, and they're both 10, 10, and 10, you're going to get 20, 20, and 20 back. Okay. Preventative care, that's the only thing that has a waiting period. So everything I've talked about so far, you can use right away, day one on the policy. If you get sick, injured, go to the doctor, go to the urgent care. But your normal yearly, hey, how you doing checkup with your doctor, that does have to wait 60 days. You get one preventative benefit of $250 per person per calendar year. Now, for my female clients, we have it a little more rough than our male clients. They get to go to one doctor, one preventative, and they go about their life. Females, we typically have two doctors that want to run preventative, and doctors are very preventative happy. They're used to a Blue Cross plan where as long as they code it as preventative, they can guarantee they're getting paid out 100%. That's not how it works with private insurance. Just like every other benefit is a limited benefit, so is your preventative. So I always tell my clients, please, please, please give me a heads up when you're going in for that first preventative. I typically just have to do it once for the first time that year that you signed up and you're doing your preventative. Once we list it on your file, they pretty much follow suit every year moving forward. It does not hurt to give them a friendly reminder though at your next yearly exam. But I want to save this preventative towards your pap smear. So when you go to your primary to get your preventative exam and your preventative blood work, I want them to code your exam as an office visit, and I want them to code your blood work as laboratory so we can split those charges up. And then let's say that very next week you go to your OB to get your preventative. I want them to code your exam once again as an office visit. I want them to code your pap smear as preventative. That way we're hitting all of those charges with a benefit as well. And speaking of blood work, my best recommendation for you as far as blood work goes is to always go to a LabCorp or a Quest. You get a firm 80% discount with them. And this is an example. A client got $748 worth of blood work. $650 was discounted, so the bill was $98.22. Her policy paid $80. She was out of pocket $18 on almost $750 worth of blood work. So that's not bad whatsoever. She did exactly what I told her. She told them her blood work to be coded as laboratory based off how her policy is structured. Okay. Now let's hop on up to your hospital and your surgical aspect of this policy. Let's talk about surgery first. Right here for your facility, they're going to pay $3,500 to go under general anesthesia. That's the regular night stuff when you get a surgery done. The best thing I can tell you is unless you're rolling in on 2 wheels to go to the hospital to get this surgery done, please don't pause to call me for that. But if it is a surgery that you're booking, you're planning, and you know about with your doctor, get me involved immediately. I'll help you find the ambulatory surgical center to go to that's in network. I'll even tell you, hey, collect this code and that code from the facility or the surgeon. Let me run it through insurance prior so that way I can get an exact dollar amount of what they're going to pay for that surgery. I can tell you right now they're going to pay $3,500 for the facility, but I don't know the exact dollar amount for the surgery itself, which that's what this two-time the RBRVs is. These benefits are going to stack on top of each other because when you get a surgery, you get billed for three things: facility, surgeon, and anesthesia. Now, the surgeon and the anesthesia typically are, minimal expenses. It is the facility that you choose to go to that breaks the bank. When you go to a hospital and you get an outpatient surgery, they're going to charge you like you moved in for 30 days. And that's just how it goes. So, just as an example, for an ambulatory surgical center, you have right here, she went and got an endoscopy, so the tube down the throat type situation. There is her facility charge. They billed $1,200, $620 was discounted, brought the bill to $580. There's her 35 benefit. She profited $2,920. Okay. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what an ambulatory surgical center, or if you're not familiar with them, basically take the OR portion of a hospital, cut it out, and make it its own freestanding building. They're not owned or affiliated by a hospital. They're typically run by a group of doctors or surgeons, and the same surgeons that do surgeries in those hospitals also cycle into the ambulatory surgical center. So I'm not sending you to someone's backyard in a shed with a butter knife by any means. They're very high credible places, of course. But before we get super excited that she just basically made $2,900 to get a tube shoved down her throat, her surgery bill was not covered at 100%. So 172.44 was her responsibility. And then her anesthesia also had out of pocket of $411. So we'll say $473 was her out of pocket for an entire endoscopy surgery. But once again, she profited $2,900. So she basically took this $2,900 and she paid her $473 bills off with it. And she still was in the positive, roughly 2,300 or 2,400, something like that. So it's worth it to lean on your broker, and it's worth it to kind of explore all avenues and not let doctors and other medical professions kind of scare you into well, you really need to go here and you really have to do it this way. It doesn't always have to be that way. Now for hospitalization, the only deductible that you have with this policy, and I'll kind of go back here so I can show it to you on your quoting platform. When I am quoting you, you get 250,000 calendar year maximum benefits per person. And that's on like your best year. Because remember, like this is just your normal yearly policy. Remember, you also have $1 million in benefits through your Med Mutual policy as well. So 1.25 on your worst year, essentially. This next category is going to be the confinement deductible. This word confinement makes the world of difference because it means that the only time this deductible comes into play is if you're admitted into the hospital for 24 hours or more. You can get a surgery without having to meet this deductible. You can go to a specialist. You can go to an urgent care. This deductible does not matter. It's basically asleep in your policy, and the only way to wake it up is to be admitted into that hospital. I selected 5,000 because obviously the higher your deductible, the lower your premium. If you would like to evaluate the 2,500 or the 1,000, we can definitely do so. And then units 1, 2, and 3. Unit 2 is what we've been following along on the brochure this entire time. Unit 3 is the higher level plan, offers all the same things that Unit 2 does. It just pays higher price points for it. And then Unit 1, it's called value, but ironically, it doesn't have a lot of value. So I typically don't write that as a primary policy. Now let's go back and let's talk about that confinement deductible. So there's your 5,000 confinement deductible. And as you can see, it is, well, it used to say, I guess it doesn't anymore. But it's your first inpatient, basically, confinement fee. So once you've spent the first 24 hours, that deductible is automatically going to be applied to your next explanation of benefits. And then you get one benefit per person per calendar year for your 2,000 first inpatient day admissions benefit. Okay. Now, as far as confinement goes, confinement just means butt in a bed in a hospital, essentially. So just to have a sleepover in that hospital, they're willing to pay $3,000 per night for a sickness and $4,500 per night for an injury. The average cost across America typically ranges anywhere from $1,700 to $3,000. So they're paying the high end of that average cost there as well. You also have ICU room benefits and any kind of rehab or skilled nursing facility benefits, but fingers crossed we never have to use those for you as well. Okay. Now, At this point, I would say, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything you would like to discuss? Anything like that? And if they say no, then that's when I come down here and I say, this is a very important part of your policy. It is guaranteed renewable to the age of 65. So yes, it may be hard to get into the policy, but it's not hard to stay in the policy. Once you're in, you're in. The only way out is for you to call and cancel. There are some private products out there that are not guaranteed renewable, and they do have the option to drop you at the event that you have a heart attack or you get diagnosed with cancer or whatever the case might be. So this is a huge part to me. Next, I would likely check doctors. And if you're not familiar with the First Health Provider Portal, you need to get familiar with it, because this is going to be your best friend. If you plan on signing up clients and keeping them on your books for a good length of time, if you don't want a lot of turnover on your book, you are going to put that extra mile in for your clients and do that work for them. So at that point, I would typically check doctors for them. But I do, and you may not have this advantage if you don't have your book built up yet, but you eventually will get this advantage and you will be able to utilize this. I pull up the fact that you will have a back office and you will have an online portal, and I will have access to it. You will have access to it. So if you create the account before I do, share that username and login password with me, please. If I create it, I will also share it to you. These are all of my clients' logins. I have every single one of them for the most part, because that's how I manage your claims. If you have an issue with a bill and you want me to take a peek, I need to log in and I need to look at your claim to match it up. So this is where I live and this is where I hang out in your portal. But some cool features is you'll have electronic ID cards available to you if you forget to put them in your wallet. But this is my favorite feature. You have your new era telehealth. So I am the queen of telehealth. I have 4 kids. I run a business. They're all in sports, and I don't have time to take them to the doctor. They're my little germ gremlins. They go to school, come back with something dripping. I don't have time for that, right? So I will do a quick phone call with a like an urgent care doctor. I'll tell them the symptoms, and then they end up calling me in a prescription. I get to go pick it up from the pharmacy, and all is well. We move past it. We're in the getting better and healing phase. It is 24/7. So you would just click on here. You'd select when you want the call, earliest available, or if you want to schedule it out, whatever the case might be. They'll ask you some questions. It's very convenient. Another cool feature that you have built directly into your policy, under the valuable members benefit, you have what's called the medical bill eraser team. They're a medical negotiating team. Like I told you before, anytime insurance is ran versus if you self-pay, the bill is always heavily elevated on that insurance run. So therefore, if you get a bill issued at 2,500 or higher for that specific facility or whatever the situation might be, let me know. Please don't panic. Don't call me yelling at me and cursing at me, and or don't panic and just pay it. We're going to process a request for them to negotiate that medical bill down, or potentially just get it erased altogether. So we will be on the phone. I'll fill out all the information that you're seeing right here, and then I'll have you take pictures of the bills. I'll go ahead and screen grab the EOBs in your back office. I'll upload those as well, and I'll submit that for you. And you will likely expect a phone call within a day of someone just to collect a little bit more information, and then that's when they go to bat for you and they genuinely start working at breaking down that bill and getting it in a more realistic point. And then at that point, and most of you who are on here also are a part of my live dials, where I have not done live dials and you've heard me do a pitch. My transitions are key, and so do yours. You need to be able to quickly and efficiently and smoothly flow from this to that to that. Don't let this part right now where I'm done. My next thing would be, do you have any questions for me? No? Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put your application in. And once we're in there, I'm going to select your effective date. It could be based off when your current policy pays every single month, so we can butt them up so you don't have gaps and laps in your coverage. Or if you're currently not covered, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pick the earliest effective date. Or what day of the month do you typically like to pay your bills on? I know the first of the month is stressful for me, so I don't want to add anything else to the first of the month, but that's just my opinion. And then, but I don't ask, would you like to put an app in? I say, okay, the next step is we got to put an application in so that we can see if we can get you approved. We can love the insurance till we're blue in the face, but until you're approved, nothing else matters.